For today's Fuuz Unplugged, I had an opportunity, I trapped Lance in the office. I don't get a lot of opportunities to steal a lot of his time, so appreciate, Lance, your time today.
Of course.
Wanted to use today to kind of get into a little bit, as we're approaching ProveIt, obviously there's a lot of excitement about everything from, the technology to the, philosophical things into actually proving it. So wanted to take today to talk a little bit about everything from the customer journey and what friction and expectations and hardships that they face, and then how Fuuz addresses some of those, and kind of how we think. I'm always trying to, we have such a complex platform that is, I always tease about cosmically powerful. So I like to kind of break things down a little bit and give some, and this whole unplugged venue is kind of an opportunity for us to break down some of those walls and try to simplify and expose and get transparency for some of our partners and our customers and whatnot. So as we talk to customers that are in this fear of rip and replace, that's always a terrifying prospect. You got so much legacy investment, you have so much knowledge, you have so much, unfortunately, technical debt that is usually weighing down our customers. So as we look into, how do we get them out of that that hole that they've been digging for literally for decades. And how do we kind of earn that trust into preserving what works? And a lot of our approach is, well, let's take a look at what you've got, what you've invested in, what is providing valuable signals, I think.
Right. What do you like? Right.
Yeah.
What do you want to keep? What maybe isn't working for you anymore?
Yeah. So why, I guess a couple things. Why is it more valuable to preserve those valuable signals, if you will, without doing everybody's, some of our competition likes to do the rip and replace. So from our perspective, how do we, with the tools that we have from, OPC and gateways, how can we kind of preserve that and provide them a way out of that hole?
Yeah. Well, we like greenfield projects as much as our competitors do, right? I mean, the ability to go into a fresh environment and just decide how you're going to roll things out. It's lovely.
It's a dream.
Yes, right. But that's not how the vast majority of projects go. Most customers are already up and running. They've got something already. And again, it's a mix of some things that work, maybe some things that worked 5 years ago, but maybe don't work so well anymore. Your business has evolved. Maybe there's some things that never really worked.
Yeah.
So, part of it, as you mentioned, is the you've got institutional knowledge, right? You've got people who have been around sometimes for decades, who are used to using the software, they're used to using whatever systems that they're interacting with. So you've got that kind of built up inertia of the systems that you're used to. And if it's something that is working for you, sometimes there might be some marginal benefits to a more modern solution, but really that's not the place to start a digital transformation, right? Is by destroying the parts that are okay, right? You want to start with the things that are low-hanging fruit, right? And so the platform, right? That's where I'm sure we're gonna get into, right? Our kind of strategy when we go into a lot of these customer projects is like, let's start there, right? What works, what doesn't, what are the immediate pain points? And so let's start by getting the Fuuz stack kind of integrated in and connected to the parts that work, so that we can kind of fill the voids of your kind of ecosystem of pieces, right? If you eventually, your long-term strategy is that you want a software solution, ideally Fuuz, right, to be the one-stop shop and kind of be that overarching platform. That's awesome. Like we're definitely are on board with that. But that's not where most people want to start a conversation. It's good to have a long-term vision. You want to have a digital strategy, but it usually doesn't start with let's just kind of blow it up and start over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and a couple of discussions that I've been having recently with some of our prospects and existing customers. Two things. Number one, as we're looking to integrate, disparate systems, kind of getting that mental model of, well, if you're connecting here to here, I always kind of like to say we can kind of siphon off as that's moving past and pull that information. Not only are you taking care of the issue of getting it to those two systems and getting those at least talking at each other,
Yeah.
but then we can kind of skim off of that and start building some greater context into the unified space, the fabric of collecting all of this data from all of these different systems. So one of the things I've been trying to also do is shift the thinking of I need to map A to B and saying, okay, you're used to thinking about I need to move this piece of data here because I need this for this particular report. I'm trying to say, let's kind of reverse engineer it and let's get straight to the end result of what you're looking for. Because this path, you're doing this serpentine because that's how you've always done it. You've been trained to think about it that way. So let's work a little bit in reverse. And what's the end product that you're looking for? And you may, instead of doing that serpentine, maybe a much more of a point to point. So eliminating kind of that way of thinking. And again, if we can solve two problems of, number one, I've got these two talking at each other, and number two, we're starting to build this greater fabric of understanding of the entire manufacturing system. So just trying to think about how we can shift the thinking of our customers into more strategic thinking.
Yeah, you end up with a lot of the downside of all of the kind of ecosystem of software that you come with. You end up with a lot of inertia or kind of ossification of like, that's the way things are done, right? And so you do sometimes have to work hard to kind of break out of that mold of thinking. And we do that on the software side as well. You've got to stay kind of mobile and agile in order to be innovative. And sometimes you need innovative solutions to some hard problems, especially as technology moves forward and manufacturing moves forward. The problems get more complicated. It's no longer just machines making parts. If it was just machines making parts, I think everybody's lives would be simpler.
Agreed.
It's all of the integrated, the supply chains and all of the, the quality management, like all of the things that come in around just machines making parts.
So that actually transitions perfectly to, kind of what I was thinking about addressing. The next thing is, from my perspective, and I kind of chat about this on LinkedIn, the existing systems of ERP and MES and QMS are, from my perspective, they're artifacts from things that people were trying to solve, and that was the best way that they could do it back in that time. And to your point, you start building that technical debt with the technologies that they had at the time, SQL databases and whatever programming that people were doing 25, 30 years ago. So how do we alleviate that concern of, this is going to be, going to Fuuz, is that going to be another technical debt that I'm going to have 5, 10, 15? Manufacturers are thinking about this investment in decade chunks instead of I'll just wipe that out in 2 years anyway. So from a technical debt, as we shift the thinking from a monolithic piece of software into a more of a team and agentic type solution or platform, how does that address, fix, create different challenges for you and your team as far as technical debt and making sure that we don't face those same issues?
Yeah, I mean, that's the right question to ask, or one of the right questions to ask. Right? you should be asking that question, right? When anytime you evaluate a software solution, is this thing going to serve us for the next 5 years or 10 years, whatever you expect kind of the lifespan of that investment to be. No software, let's be realistic, no software lasts forever, right? I mean, at some point, you'll reach the end of the useful life of that particular solution. Either your business has changed or technology has moved on and it's time to upgrade. That always happens, right? But you want to make sure that the time frame in which that happens is long enough,
as possible.
Right? Exactly, right. Ideally as long as possible so that you get the maximum value out of your investment, right? So on our side, on the platform side, we've done a bunch of work the way Fuuz is kind of architected is to kind of separate the application layer from kind of the runtime. So the application development, ultimately what that ends up generating is a series of artifacts that aren't tied to any particular implementation. So it's really an abstract representation of, it's ultimately just JSON data, actually. It's nothing magical, but it's a representation of the business logic, of the user interface, of the data structures. It's not written in like a particular language that's going to be kind of out of vogue in a few years. So we can always grow the platform underneath, and as long as we work within our own domain-specific language is the fancy term for it, as long as we know how to work with our own domain-specific language and our own definitions of these things, then we can always make sure that the applications continue to run. The API is always there, and it's all kind of the same end result, even as the technology underneath in the platform layer kind of advances and moves forward. So that was one of the things that we did early on, is make that decision to kind of split those layers so that we have we have our own DSL, domain-specific language, and that's kind of how we store and work with apps and Fuuz. All the parts of apps are all just JSON data. So.
Yeah. So in turn, that continues to kind of building a stack of kind of easing the burdens from your side and from the customer side, as far as when we do release new features. I was just watching the last Fuuz podcast on some of the new features that were being released, and it's nice to know that those can be deployed without disrupting the manufacturing workspace, and as we keep upgrading, minor, major, whatever, that's not going to really impede our customers, and
Exactly.
Manufacturing is so critical and deterministic for our competition that wasn't born out of the plant floor. I think we take that for granted. We know the requirements of uptime. So.
Yeah. I think we could probably do a better job. Maybe that's a whole podcast in the future to really kind of deep dive into that difference. I think the idea of software that updates, the kind of versionless platform, which isn't really versionless, but we do zero downtime seamless upgrades every month to our production environments. And the idea, like, sometimes that freaks people out, but we're not touching the application, right? Again, that application is that domain-specific language. All of your business logic, none of that changes. Usually what we're upgrading under the hood is performance improvements, security patches, the things that you want to have automatically applied for free and not have to worry about.
Yeah, just like Netflix, you don't want to worry. I just want to watch my movie, right?
Yep. Yeah, or we also roll out a lot of improvements to the application development environment, right? That's a lot of the focus from the platform team, is making it quicker and easier to build applications so that you can build these smaller pieces that kind of fit into this constellation of apps, rather than having to build one monolithic ERP or NES that maybe has quality and inventory and everything else.
Yeah.
You can kind of build apps that slot into the specific niche that you need. So, so a lot of what we work on is trying to make that as easy as possible. So.
Yeah, very cool. So it was always funny when back in my days at Coors Engineering, when we would take a look at digital twins and data lakes and AI and all of the marketing pressure that was put on that. We at that time, and I'm dating myself now, but I guess that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, that some of those things were really starting to push into the marketing presence in manufacturing. So from your perspective, you've been watching all of these things come, and just curious what your process is on analyzing. I know a lot of what drives us is directly from our customers saying, Definitely. I need this.
Yep.
But you also have to have a little bit of a lens on AWS and some of the tools that are up and coming. So just curious, from your leadership, how do you, when I was working at my last job, we were looking at AI and just going, oh my God, how do we possibly keep up on that? And one of our CTO went to Google, a Google conference, and they asked that question to Google, and Google's like, well, we can't keep up on it. Holy cow, if Google can't keep up on it.
Yeah.
So just curious, from your lens, how do you digest this overwhelming tidal wave of technologies and partners and innovation that is coming, and figure out, how do we take advantage of even on the AWS side and their stack of tools that they've got. Curious, how you guys evaluate AI and new technologies that are always pounding on your door, saying we're important, right?
Yeah, and trying to figure out which of those are actually important and which aren't. To back up a bit, right? Like things like data lakes. It's a great concept. Definitely has application in some areas, but I think at this point, a lot of the folks who maybe implemented a data lake now they have, a data swamp. They have a big puddle of data, and now they're at the point of like, great, we were promised if we put all this data in this lake, we eventually we'll drive value from it, and sort of in the meantime, everybody else has moved on to AI, and I mean, you can use some of that data now maybe to train or feed AI. Some of the LLMs or agentic AI, like some of that could be helpful as training data, but training data needs to be structured and clean, so you can't just throw data at a, So anyway, point is, there is a lot of marketing hype that you've got to kind of separate out. I think, the taking the time or having the time to keep an eye on the landscape is something I wish I had more time for, to be honest. But a lot of it is, keeping a finger on the pulse of what you're hearing, what our sales team is hearing, what Craig is hearing, right? He spends a lot of time talking to our customers, what our delivery team, Ed Sosnowski, what they hear from customers, and then talking to our partners as well, right? Kind of like, what do they see up and coming? We have some really good partners, some really smart folks out there, who we can kind of borrow ideas from sometimes. That's really helpful. Keeping an eye out on, kind of up and coming newsletters. Honestly, there's quite a few good newsletters out there.
Yeah.
Things like that can kind of just keep you finger on the pulse. But then having the time to actually deep dive into some of those things as they come up is much more of a challenge. I've got some great people on the team, thankfully.
I was going to say, there's probably a lot of hobbyists that are like, oh, I want to play with that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We've got some people on the team who sometimes will come to us with like, hey, I saw this thing and I played with it at home, and it's really cool. Those are the kind of people you want on your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. But yeah, we've got some smart people too who, if there's something that we need somebody to spend some time to investigate into, we can, give them a week and they can come back with.
Well, it's fun to watch, watch Craig on his weekend off, use Claude to build out an entire, which I'm sure impacts you. I'm like, okay, Craig, stop doing that. But it is fun to watch.
It's great,
It's fun to watch those little bit of innovations. I want to fall back a little bit to your data swamp comment. And one of our partners, Avalara, was talking about you can't AI your way out of messy data. And I think that's, as I talk to a chunk of the ecosystem from prospects and partners and whatnot, everybody's talking about AI, but they really don't understand. I think there's this impression that AI will take the burden of just garbage, just infinite garbage, and figure out how to, because that's the promise, right? But I think, can you explain a little bit as we get into UNS and the magic sauce that we've got of really, not only are we leveraging the concept of UNS and SESME's structure, but we take that to the next level and automatically regulate that and enforce that type of stuff to make it so 2 years down the line or 1 month down the line or 1 day down the line, all of that effort that you've put into, okay, let's really make this something special, is now really utilizable, if that's a word, by AI.
Yeah, the data modeling capabilities in the platform I've heard it described variously as our secret sauce, or kind of like the big thing that we do differently. And I think that approach that we took, which is a little bit more of in some ways, a more traditional software engineering mindset, thinking about data structures first. That's how we typically approach problems. You think about the shape of your data, and you make sure that you understand that first, and you have that kind of modeled, with the ability to be flexible in the future, right? Especially in highly diverse, manufacturing environments where things really don't map perfectly to a computer data model of like, You have this concept of a piece of equipment, great, and you give it these specific fields. Yeah, but this one's different.
Yeah.
So you need that flexibility, but you need the structure and the governance, as you say, right? So you need to be able to trust that data matches the structure that you give it. You need to be able to know the origin of that data, the genesis, and the there's a word I'm looking for that I'm currently missing. Anyway, the history of the data, right? Where did it come from? How did it get there? How has it been touched and updated over time? And then that structure then lets you much more easily feed it into an LLM, and you can give it the context of not just here's tables of data or here's blocks of JSON, but also here's the context of what those fields mean and what that data model means and how it relates to other pieces of data in the system. And those kind of connections and that context is really how LLMs are able to kind of derive more insight, right? If you just feed it data, it's going to guess based on probably the name of the field, the column header, right? What that probably is, but it's going to be hit or miss. And God forbid if you have semi-structured or completely unstructured data where you really don't have any consistency in exactly what fields you have or how they're named or how they're formatted, then yeah, it's going to be rough to try to get an LLM to drive insights from that. But
yeah, and especially with manufacturing again being so critical and so deterministic. So I'm kind of curious as we get that some of that plumbing really solidified and in place and proven, and confidence I think continues to escalate.
Yep.
Do you think that there will always be, especially in manufacturing, a human in the loop, or do you think we'll get to a point where
I think there should be a human in the loop. There's a philosophical debate, right? I think there should be a human in the loop at least at some point in the process, especially with critical decision making, especially for the foreseeable future, right? I mean, that's what the next thing I was going to say is that an LLM in particular it will spit something out. If you throw garbage at it, it will spit garbage back at you. It's just, is that something that you
with
can
high confidence?
Exactly, right. I mean, and then if you tell it it's wrong, it'll say, "Oh, you're absolutely right that you were." That
with
I'm
more
wrong.
high confidence.
Yes, exactly. So, is what it's spitting back at you something that you can trust is an important question, right? Especially if you're using those insights to then drive significant organizational change or process change. You need to be able to know that it's not hallucinating on something or inventing data along the way. So especially for anything that is, kind of those critical changes, you're going to need somebody to kind of double check things. And it's very similar when we're using AI tools as part of the code process, right? Like you don't use AI to even generate a single little function and then just deploy it to production. Like there always is a human in the loop to check that, test it, make sure that it looks good, that it works as intended. It's even once they get to be very reliable, you'll always, I think, want that safety net.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and especially, one of the big things that I've noticed about our platform is as we look into the array of technical debt and all of these fragmented Excel spreadsheets and homemade applications and a SCADA system there and an MES. So as you have these exponential layers of agents, if you will, and teams of things that are contributing, again, that also probably exponentially increases your liability of AI doing something poorly.
Yeah, definitely. So, and that's one of the things, I don't want to pretend like we had some sort of glass or crystal ball that we looked into and saw where the future was going, but the platform and the way we architected it, 8 years ago, turns out to be really well adaptable to the current approach of AI, the LLM craze in particular, right? But any kind of AI, the fact that we have structured data, even the fact that the apps themselves are JSON data means that they work really well with the way LLMs kind of operate under the hood. So that's actually given us a good leg up and, given us the ability to make Fuuz the, kind of the hub for, AI activity, as an example, within an enterprise. If a customer wanted to take that approach and have sort of one central hub that manages those interactions, right? We have the ability to build, for example, MCP tools in Fuuz, and we take that approach of enabling customers or partners, developers, whatever, to decide how much AI interactivity do they want, where they want those boundaries to lie, because there's a lot of questions to decide there. But you could use Fuuz as kind of the central hub for that, and then get all of that data governance and the permissioning and the audit traceability and the ability to undo things if something goes haywire, right? You've always got that data history. You can always roll back. So that puts us in a position to potentially be that, right, that industrial intelligence hub for AI. You know, when we had built the platform, we weren't thinking about LLMs, right? They really hadn't hit the mass market yet. But you know, that concept extends really nicely.
So you know, from an architecture, again, I think I don't want to call it accidental because everything is done for a reason. But it's interesting to watch how the natural design and organic design of Fuuz lends itself to scaling enterprise-wide. You know, I had a lot of my career is focused on one or two organizations, but then when we get into an enterprise where you have that governance, where you need that across multiple plants, across multiple disciplines, it's fascinating to watch how well Fuuz addresses that. For me, to watch, as I've got all of these disparate architected spreadsheets and all these systems, to watch how you guys have created a platform that is designed for that scalability in an enterprise. So how, I mean, I guess, can you describe a little bit about why it lends itself so well to the enterprise mindset and the hive mind, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is due to the genesis of the product and the fact that we've always been focused primarily on building features and building capabilities that solve specific problems. So, you know, some of that was just customers came to us with hard problems, and we said, yeah, we can make that work, right? We can build some features and we could build some capabilities that make that easier to work with. And over time, you don't realize you're solving the kind of grand problem, but eventually you end up with you know, a set of tools that addresses, you know, kind of a bigger problem than you set out to solve initially. And then, you know, sometimes you find, once you realize that that's the problem that you're actually solving, you can take a step back and identify what gaps there might be left and plug those in and end up with, you know, kind of a full suite solution. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, you know, we've had historically great customer partners as well, right? Who have been really willing to work with us on, you know, building out the capabilities of the platform and helping us kind of identify what they need in order to make the system kind of fit their needs. And they've been, you know, historically, right, this was, you know, 7, 8 years ago when we were really early on, they were, you know, willing to be a little patient for some of those things to come out, which is always great. You know, that's helped a lot. So having some of those big multinational enterprises to work with as kind of partners in that development was really critical early on too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So ProveIt is coming.
Yes.
And
in case I need a reminder.
Probably losing lots of sleep, and you know, it's definitely it's always. I had an employee for years that said, until I have a deadline, it's just going to kind of drift. Well, ProveIt is a great deadline and a stake in the ground to say, okay, let's prove some really cool things. So I spend a lot of my time talking about all of the things that we can do and we will do, but it's fun to actually put that stake in the ground and show this is what is being done. This is real. This is not hypothetical. So I'm excited not only to see all of the things that we've been doing for years, but also some of the things that are some of the newer innovations over the last maybe 6 months that maybe not everybody has seen. So I know you guys are working on some new deliverable capabilities and twist on things. So curious if you can give a little bit of a sneak peek.
Yeah, the biggest push that has been primarily headed by Ryan Hamilton, I'm gonna give him a shout out because he's done a ton of work on that front, is to give us more flexibility in how we deploy Fuuz. Historically, it's always been a cloud-native product. So we host it in AWS, we handle all the infrastructure, and we just deliver it to end users through a website, through URL, right? Which for a lot of customers works great, right? It means that we worry about all the hard stuff, all the infrastructure, the uptime, reliability, the patching, we handle all of the hard stuff. But there are some instances where that doesn't work as well. Either things like highly regulated environments where maybe they need really strict controls over where their data resides, or maybe it's completely air-gapped. There is no connection to the external internet. Or cases where somebody just wants to kind of get the software, play around with it on a small scale, and kind of understand what it does and be able to prove the value out without needing to engage a cloud-hosted provider, right? That's something that we've always struggled with a little bit is, the solution is architected first for this high availability and this, scalability and performance, which means that it's not cheap to run an instance of it.
There's a burden to that.
Exactly. So how do you give out free trials for software that costs money to run without dumping a bunch of money down the drain for things that might never come back? So Ryan's been doing a ton of work to support a version of the platform that will run on any server in a Dockerized environment, and we'll support Kubernetes as well. To be clear, that's how we run it in production, right? It's all containerized in Kubernetes. So really the work that we've been doing is finding all the things, all the assumptions that we made early on, that we'd be always hosted in a cloud provider that we own, and then kind of walking those back and building capabilities around things like file storage and licensing. Licensing is one of those things that is very different for on-prem versus cloud software. So plugging some of those holes, but what we'll be able to deliver is a version of the platform. Initially, it'll be just kind of a closed beta trial, but the idea is this will be another deployment capability that could be run on a server or a set of servers in a customer network or in their own cloud provider, private cloud, public cloud, whatever they want. And then the goal is also to be able to support hybrid infrastructure, where we have a cloud-hosted instance that is that enterprise orchestration layer, but maybe you have an instance of Fuuz, a complete instance of the software running in a plant, and that gives you a little bit more of that kind of high availability, kind of internet outage, fault tolerance, warm fuzzy, I guess I might say, because as we always tell everybody, if the internet goes out, you're going to have a lot of problems, right? Not just this one piece of software, but in some cases it is a legitimate concern, right?
Sure.
I mean, let me back up. It's always a legitimate concern. It's always a legitimate concern. But so this is another tool and toolbox to help address that concern, right?
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. So.
Awesome. Well, I know how hard you guys are working, and certainly appreciate it. We get to do the easy fluff work out there.
I wouldn't call it easy, yeah.
But no, I'm excited for ProveIt, and I'm so excited to watch the attendees. After watching, there's going to be so many participants, there's going to be so many presentations. I can't wait to see the result of this and watch the excitement of the attendees, watch the partners, watch the integration between partners, current and prospective. It'll be exciting. I'm a little bit terrified. I've heard they're kind of a scary crowd, so hopefully they are gentle with us. But I'm also excited because we've already proven so much over the last near decade.
Yeah, and it's I've been thinking about this as in a way, because of the kind of organic growth over time of the platform. We never had a product launch, right?
Yeah.
We never had like we've arrived. The thing is here. You can use it. Like we've never had that big
bang.
Yeah, exactly. A big celebration, big huzzah. And so in a way, this kind of is that. I don't know if Craig's been thinking about it that way, but that's been kicking around in the back of my mind. Of like, this is kind of our a chance for us to say like, we've arrived. And what we're arriving with is a software suite that's been built up and proven out over the last 8 years already.
Right.
It's already in use. It's already out there. So
very cool.
It's ready to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're really excited. We're working very hard, as you can guess. I mean, a lot of what we're focused on at this point is it's polished, right? I mean, again, the platform, we had not originally envisioned it as something that would be in the hands of a large number of people, right? We had never built it to be kind of accessible in like a free trial context.
Yeah.
So there are some things that you really just kind of would have had to go through training in order to kind of understand the context of the platform and how it works.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, again, backing up some of those assumptions too, and just like, all right, there's some buttons there's some navigation features that we're kind of missing.
Yeah, interesting.
Just some discoverability, right? Of like, where do I go to get started?
Yeah.
Some of that stuff that feels really basic, but it, for a piece of software that was intended for, kind of an enterprise audience from the beginning, they're typically going to go through that training, or they're going to partner with one of our partners or with our delivery team to help them build their solutions. So it didn't need to be something that anybody could kind of boot up and play with.
Hard to have a starting point for cosmically powerful.
It is. That has been a real challenge. Yeah. Where do you start somebody? So and there will be more coming over the next year for sure to try to improve that new user tutorial experience.
Well, you guys, you and Craig, I watched all the videos he's been putting out, and it's definitely a part of the journey. So, well, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been a blast.
Anytime.
We look forward to getting some more conversations and more visibility and transparency into what magic that these guys are doing behind the scenes, and I'll do my best to keep communicating all of the coolness to the rest of the ecosystem. So thanks for your time. Hopefully this was a great podcast. Feel free to reach out to us. More suggestions about what you're looking for to learn from us, and we'll do our best to keep revealing all the fun stuff that we're doing here. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.